What's going on, Chum Guzzlers? Welcome back to Bucket of Chum, the Shark Movie Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Captain Steve, and we are continuing our GRIZZLY MAY theme month with Day of the Animals from 1977, directed by William Girdler, the same director as Grizzly from last week's episode. I want to start this episode off with doing a little bit of trivia about this movie first off. I got all this from IMDb for the most part, I think. So the first little bit that we have is this film is sometimes mistakenly called a sequel to director William Girdler's previous film, mostly because it basically had the same plot and trained bear, had the same executive producer, same director, production company and all that, and also featured two actors, Richard Jaeckel, don't know how his name's pronounced, and Christopher George. But as we know, and as I have teased, Grizzly did have an actual sequel, so to speak, Grizzly 2: The Revenge, which came out in 2020 / made in 1983, which I'm going to be talking about over on Patreon this month. I'm going to actually rewatch the movie after I record this episode. Hopefully for the last fucking time, because I don't want to watch that movie ever again. But yeah, so I think even in some markets, they did call this Grizzly 2. Even though, like, it's clearly not a sequel. We have two actors from the previous movie playing completely different characters. And to be honest, there's actually not a whole lot of bear action in this movie, which I was sort of led to believe by reading some of this trivia. But yeah, we do get a little bit in there, so it still kind of fits in with the month. But we do actually have a connection to Jaws in this movie. So, Susan Backlany, who just passed away, I think it was earlier this year or last year, she played the young swimmer who was the first victim, Christy, in Jaws. She's also the first victim to be attacked in this movie. So we actually do have like a bit of a Jaws connection here, so that's pretty cool. But now let's get into the Letterboxd plot synopsis. A shocking vision of things to come. The depletion of the Earth's ozone layer causes animals above the altitude of 5,000 feet to run amok, which is very unfortunate for a group of hikers who get dropped off up there by helicopter just before the quarantine is announced. This has an average rating of 2.8 stars, which is about where Grizzly landed as well, so that brings us into my poster expectations. And now, if you haven't listened to the show before, what I do before I watch the movie is I take a look at the poster, write down what I kind of expect from this movie and whatnot. And I actually hadn't seen this movie before doing this episode. I'd been wanting to see it for a very long time and just never got around to it. So I finally used this as an excuse to watch the movie. So for this movie, again, it's a hand-painted poster with just a bunch of animals all around it. It's called Day of the Animals, so that's, pretty par for the course. But very much the same as Grizzly. And with what we just read in the trivia, I'm expecting kind of more of the same as Grizzly, maybe upping the ante a little bit, expecting a bit more like shenanigans, hopefully some more practical animal effects, but ultimately, hopefully just as effective as Grizzly, though, because like I said last week, I think that movie was super effective in the way that they edited the movie, cutting from the bear to people's reactions to some of the practical effects they did with the bear, so hopefully this movie kind of keeps up with more of the same. And like I said, I am going to be covering Grizzly 2 over on Patreon. So if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/bucketofchum. Each month I'm doing an exclusive episode over there, and all just for $2 or $3 a month, depending on where you live. If you can't do that, I would really appreciate a rating or a review wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, if you could hit like, subscribe, comment on the video, share the video. All those things are greatly appreciated and just help get the show into more ears and eyes. And I forgot to write a funny intro to this, so let's dive into the plot. So the movie starts off with a text crawl, basically telling us a scientist rocked the world with the discovery that the shit used in aerosol cans are bad for the environment, and especially for the ozone layer. And this movie depicts what could possibly happen if the ozone layer gets depleted, and if we don't do more to protect the planet and all of that. So we start off with Steve. That's me. No, I'm not in this movie. But he's played by Christopher George, who played Kelly in Grizzly, the main park ranger. And he's starting to lead a group of hikers on, a hike, including Leslie Nielson playing Paul Jensen. And anyways, he's approached by Tucker, who is a police officer. I don't know if he's the sheriff, because I think the sheriff is credited as somebody else, but this is the main police officer we see kind of throughout this movie. And so he's asking like what he's doing with this group and that there's been a lot of accidents on the mountain and whatnot, and they need to be careful. And just as they're talking about this, they spot a hawk or some bird, and they comment that they don't usually see it this far down on the mountain. So this is our kind of first indication that these animals are going to go batshit crazy, probably. Then we just see various members of the group chit-chatting. Paul is an advertiser. There's a Professor McGregor, who's played by Richard Jaeckel, who played Scotty in Grizzly, and a couple trying to mend their relationship. I feel like these are the people we usually see in like group settings like this. But again, this movie came out in 77, so it wasn't really much of a trope at this point. We also have a reporter as well, and a mother and son. So like that's kind of our basic group of hikers here. And so they all get onto the choppers. There's two of them that start loading up. And Steve stops the woman who's a reporter and says, like, he has a story for her, but she kind of just brushes him off, saying, like, she's on vacation. I don't even entirely remember what his story idea was supposed to be, but I feel like it really doesn't matter at this point. So they get up into the choppers, and we just see some, like, very pretty shots of the landscape and all of that. And some of the animals just kind of watching as all this happens. And then our group is hiking along, having a pleasant old time. Then we see a wolf watching them and like baring its teeth. Nothing really comes from it. We just kind of get like some of these teases here and there. And then we see like a lizard, a mountain lion, and a bear. Basically all the animals we see on the fucking poster are kind of watching these people hike along. So they all stop for a break and drink water, and the professor takes some photos. The hawk, I don't know if it's a hawk, it's some sort of bird. I'm just going to keep saying it's a hawk. It starts making noises. And then one of the hikers acts concerned that there's like no other sounds. And so everyone quiets down and listens, and there's not really much sound going on. So there's silence for a bit. And then all of a sudden, all the birds in the area start making noise. And then a couple swoop down at the hikers, like scaring the shit out of them. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of stop. Steve comments that he's never seen anything like this before, and the concerned hiker is Daniel, who's like a Native American, and he also says like he's never experienced anything like this either. A couple of people express their concerns, but Steve's just like, don't worry about it, everything's gonna be fine. Lies. We go back to the town, and the sheriff, or Tucker, he pulls up to a bar, and he's greeted by like a growling dog outside. And he just kind of passes by it without incident, and he goes into the bar and sits down and starts talking with some old people or whatever. And then as he sits down at the table, they're telling the story of how some people were attacked by like 7 rattlesnakes or something. This is something that definitely comes into play later with the rattlesnakes. And on the TV, there's a news report about the depletion of the ozone layer, and there's a warning for people above 5,000 feet or just in high altitudes in general to start evacuating all their areas. And so Tucker then like goes to the waitress and asks for some pineapple pie and dumps some ice cream on it. Now, first of all, the first thing is it's like, why are you not more concerned about this? You're in a higher altitude area, so you should probably be listening to this. But 2, I had no fucking idea that pineapple pie was even a fucking thing. And I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I like pineapple, but as a pie, I don't know. I'm curious. I've never tried it, never heard of it. So I don't know why that grabbed my attention, but it did. I was just like, I've never heard of it. Just, it's shocking to me. Although I guess really you can make a fucking pie out of anything, so I don't know. Anyways, the camera then pans outside, and then we see this dog still like staring up at the window and like growling and like baring its teeth up at the bar. We go back out with our hikers. They're still on the move, still being followed by the birds and other animals or whatever. And then the teenage kid is upset at his mom for being mom-like, and Daniel's just like, old people, why don't you go ahead and take point? I mean, I don't know. There's, again, with some of these movies, there's just like weird lines and interactions with people that just don't really make any sense, and this was kind of one of them, because he doesn't even really take point because like Steve is leading the pack, because like nobody else can lead because nobody else knows where they're going. So this just doesn't really make any fucking sense. But they eventually end up at a campsite with a fire still burning, but there's no one around, and there's like hot cups of coffee still around. So they decide to set up camp nearby. And that night they do the white people thing and start fucking singing, and someone is playing harmonica. No offense to harmonica players or any music players, But it drives me fucking nuts whenever you're going camping or around a fire pit or bonfire or whatever, and some motherfucker breaks out an acoustic guitar or something and starts playing. And now, I don't mind that they start playing. What bothers me is that everyone else is like, oh, no one else can talk or do fucking anything else because we have to let the musician do his thing and then fucking praise him. Fuck off. No, I want to talk and chit chat with people. I don't want to sit there and listen to you fucking play Smoke on the Water for the 400th fucking time. Oh my god. We can do both. You can play your music. I can talk to people. I won't even be loud about it. I'll be respectful. But like, oh my god, this shit just drives me nuts. It drives me up the fucking wall. Anyways, I'm a little triggered by that in case you couldn't tell. So Daniel starts talking with Steve and says that they should keep an eye out tonight and that there's like something strange in the woods. And Steve asks him to like kind of keep it to himself for now until they figure out like what's going on, and he agrees with that. And then John, the teenage kid, I don't know if he's a teenager. He's probably like in between like 10 to 13 or somewhere in that range. So he breaks off from the group, I mean like 15 feet away, and he starts just like throwing rocks at shit, as kids do. And then his mom is like yelling at him to stop because he'll get lost. And then Daniel also tells him to stop, like, oh yeah, something will happen to you. I'm like, guys, he's like fucking 15 feet away. Not even. He's not even like without, like he's still within eyesight. And everyone's like, oh, don't do that. Oh my god. Oh, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with these people. And then Daniel goes over and comforts the mother, who just seems to be at her wit's end because she just like left his father. And she's like, I don't know what to do with him, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this hardly seems like that big of a fucking deal. I'm like, he was throwing rocks like kids do. And she's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, I'm like, well, maybe going on like a fucking 3-day hike maybe wasn't the right move per se. I don't know, but just blah, 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 sad family drama. Who fucking cares? We do get a little bit of background on Daniel, and so Daniel tells us the story of how his father grew up on a reservation and couldn't wait to leave, and so he left and changed his name. And then, like, for the longest time, Daniel was, Mr. White. They literally changed their last name to White. Insane, but eventually Daniel is like, I eventually found out that my name is Daniel Steen or something like that. And so he basically eventually finally discovered his true heritage. So like Daniel, like I said, Daniel is Native or First Nations. So yeah, he's finally starting to embrace all that after his father kind of like gave up that life or that heritage for some reason. Not entirely clear, but yeah, so we just get a little bit of background on Daniel there. Then the professor finally stands up and suggests to everybody that they get some sleep because they have a big day tomorrow. So everyone starts to get comfy. Some people are in like one-person tents. Some people are just straight up in sleeping bags around the fire. And then Terry, who's the reporter, and Steve are the last ones awake. And then she's asking, like, she can't help but wonder where these people are. So when they came earlier, they were at another campsite that's still really close by to them. And the people that were there just never returned. I wonder what happened to them. So yeah, she's starting to get like into reporter mode, but then Steve just starts asking her like why she got into reporting and all that, kind of steering the conversation away. I guess he's trying not to worry everybody about anything yet because they don't know what's going on. And then we start to see like various animals around the site, like an owl is watching them and some other birds. Always the fucking birds, man. Jesus Christ. Evil creatures, I'm telling you. And then all of a sudden, a wolf enters the site and immediately starts attacking Mandy, who's, again, played by Susie Backliny. I gotta start learning how to pronounce people's fucking names. God damn it. But anyways, everyone wakes up and comes to her aid, and then the wolf, like, kind of fucks off. And then we just hear, like, a bunch of howling. And then it's the next morning, and then Mandy and her boyfriend are given supplies to head back down to get Mandy patched up. So I guess they're going to go find like a park ranger tower or something to go and get some help. Why this whole trip isn't just over yet, I don't fucking know. Like, so they head off and then the rest of them continue on. And I'm like, does Steve not have any responsibility here to like help these people or go with them? I'm like, she can still walk and everything, so it's not like she's completely mangled or anything, but like, I don't know. But it's also the 70s too, so like I can totally believe this and see this happening. Because like nowadays if that happened, like the trip is fucking over. People are either getting refunds or partial refunds or something, and like the trip is fucking over. Like that person's going to get medical attention, I'm sure. They're not just going to send, like, 2 people who... I'm assuming most of these people are fucking amateurs, so they're just like, yeah, just follow this and maybe you'll be alright. God damn. Ah, the 70s, what a time. What a time. But anyways, the group continues on, and then one of the hikers asks Steve's, like, what he thinks happened last night, but he really doesn't know. He doesn't have any fucking idea. And then Paul starts stating this whole, like, no weapons, no food, business is nonsense, and it's like, why are you here then? He's here by himself. He's not here with, like, a wife or girlfriend, but he's on, like, this hiking thing, and he's upset about all these things happening. I'm like, you signed up for this by the sounds of it, and you paid for it. So why are you here? I don't fucking know. And he just complains some more, and then Daniel offers him a big stick, and Paul starts, like, mocking his native accent, which, again, the fucking 70s, man. They're just throwing the shit out there. Although people in the movie do give him shit for this, and I'm like, this is a little progressive for 77. They're calling him out on his racist bullshit. Yeah, we kind of need some more of that today. Here in Canada as well, actually, this kind of reminds me of a story from when I was growing up. I remember being in high school, or maybe just out of high school, and I think one of the reservations up north had, like, burned down or had, like, a massive fire breakout. And so a bunch of natives and First Nations people kind of moved into the area while, you know, things were getting repaired and whatnot. And the town was up in fucking arms about this. They're like, oh my god, all the natives coming here, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, okay, first of all, they're natives, First Nations, like, it's their fucking country, so let's start off with that. 2, what's the big fucking deal? Who gives a shit? Like, they had, like, a terrible tragedy, and we're trying to help them out, and everybody starts losing their shit? I don't fucking understand what's wrong with people. Like, this shit just really... I'm getting triggered again. I'm getting triggered by white people. White people are just triggering me today. I'm white. I'm getting triggered looking at myself. Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, I just think that was bullshit. Like, I don't get it. If somebody feels this way, try explaining it to me. Like, I'm fucking 4 years old, because I honestly don't understand it. But I guess it's just hard to explain fucking racist bullshit. So I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled programming. The group continues on, and we see a mountain lion watch them walk along. And then we go back with Mandy and Frank, and some birds are following them. Fucking birds, man. Then they start to notice this and get scared, so they proceed with caution. And then Mandy starts panicking that they're being followed and asks, like, what the hell they want with them. And then Frank tries to calm her down, and she kind of collapses for a second, and he tries to pick her up. But then she just starts, like, losing her shit on him and starts yelling that she hates him. So this was the couple that were here to, like, repair their relationship. That's not gonna fucking happen. He tries to calm her down, and then after she starts yelling at him, he just walks away, and he's, like, just gonna leave her there. And I'm like, she's fucking injured. I'm like, she's probably angry, lost some blood. I'm like, you can't really hold this against her. I'm also wondering now if maybe this is some sort of indication that she's been affected by this virus. Because I do think they try to say that, like, because this ozone layer has been depleting, that, like, the animals are getting some sort of virus. So I'm thinking, like, is she upset at him for their shitty relationship, or is the virus actually starting to affect her? I don't really know, but I think that's, like, kind of an interesting thing to explore, because I think later on Leslie Nielson's character goes, like, completely fucking insane, and I think, like, the theory is that the virus or whatever it is starting to affect him, but it doesn't really seem to affect anybody else. And now that I think about it, later on, there's, like, a radio news broadcast or something like that where they're talking about how some people have immunity to this. So it seems like a lot of people in this area, and I guess just on this hiking thing, are pretty much immune to it for the most part. So I guess it would stand to reason that there's got to be at least a couple of them that aren't immune to this thing. So that's actually probably what might be happening here. Well, look at me and my big fucking brain today. Ha! So yeah, after Shitty Frank starts walking away, she starts getting attacked by the fucking birds. And so he comes back and tries to help her, but the birds just keep fucking attacking. And they eventually make her fall off a cliff, all bloodied up. This was pretty great. Like, we do get, like, a bad, like, kind of comp shot of her falling. So, like, basically she would just be up against, like, a blue screen or something like that, and they would just, like, comped her out and had, like, birds around her. and then the background is just kind of moving towards us. But I still, for 77, I thought this was actually pretty good. Like, this is the kind of shit that I'm here for. But again, it was the fucking birds. It always starts with the fucking birds. And after that, we go back with the main group, and the kid is trying to listen to the radio, and then the mom starts fighting him for the radio, and then she ends up, like, knocking it down into some water. She was, like, trying to get it from him because the signal was breaking up, and I'm just like, don't let the old people with the radio, because this is what happens. She drops it in the fucking water. This reminds me of that one time my stepmother was using my, like, boom box, basically. So I had, like, a, portable, like, a CD player thing, that you would have in your bedroom, and it took like fucking 6 C batteries or D batteries or some shit, and she fucking poured booze all over it. I had to use fucking pliers to like twist the volume knob on it because it had all like fucking gooped up in there. Ugh, this movie's very triggering for me, apparently. God damn. But yeah, so she ends up dropping it in the water, and everyone starts asking, like, what he heard, because the kid had obviously heard something on the radio. And so he starts telling them that, like, there was a reporter saying that, like, people are starting to leave higher altitudes, and it has something to do with the ozone layer. And then, of course, people are asking him, like, oh, was it just, like, a story or a play? And he's like, no, like, this was an actual reporter telling us this. And then Paul starts chiming in and asks Steve, like, where the food is. And Steve says, like, it's just up ahead. So I guess, like, they've gotten, like, the helicopters to, like, drop off food at certain points. But they're also, like, trying to find food, like, in plants and whatnot. Like, that's sort of part of the hiking trip. But Paul doesn't seem to believe him and, like, sort of mocks him. So, but then they just kind of get moving along after this. And then we go back with Frank, and he finds a stream, and he face plants into it to, like, drink some water up. And then he sees a doll floating, and then he looks across and sees a little girl standing on a rock. And, like, she's all dirtied up, like, she's been in the woods for a while, so she's all, like, ragtag looking. And he goes over to her, asks her who she is, and she doesn't really say anything. And he's like, are your parents here? She doesn't say anything. He's like, oh, well, of course your parents aren't here. I'm like, yeah, probably not. She looks like she's been beat up for fucking 3 days. And then he tries to offer her some food, and as he tries to hand it to her, a fucking bird comes and swoops it out of his fucking hand. And the little girl starts screaming, and then Frank grabs her and starts running away. Is this Grizzly 2 or The Birds 3? Although I guess this would have been The Birds 2, because they did make up The Birds 2. If you haven't seen that movie, it's also awful. Don't recommend it. Thanks for making me own that one, Vinegar Syndrome, you fucking bastards. Back with the main group, they start getting excited as they start to close in on where the food is supposed to be, and when they get there, the whole food supply has been strewn about everywhere. And of course, Paul gives Steve shit and tells everyone, and like Steve tells everyone to calm down. I'm like, this isn't Steve's fault. I'm like, the helicopter dropped this food off, the animals are going fucking insane and probably tore this whole food supply to shit. So this has nothing to do with him. He has zero control over this. Again, so I think, like, this is Paul starting to become affected by the virus. Like, Paul's already a piece of shit because he said he's in, like, marketing or advertising. So, I mean, he's already a piece of shit, right? So, but I think, like, when he starts getting angrier and angrier like this, I think that's the virus starting to take over or whatever it is that's affecting people. And the mother starts chiming in and says it has something to do with the ozone layer, that she can feel it. But Steve just says it's like everybody's just getting like a worked up imagination and they need to work together to get off this mountain. But then Paul says that they should just stay there because the choppers are the ones that drop the food off there, so they should be able to return to this spot. So they have a better chance of surviving by staying still and defend themselves as opposed to like getting lost in the woods. And I'm like, if you have Steve there, he's doing this hike. This seems like his fucking job. He probably knows where he's going. He led you to this spot. So, again, Paul's just a fucking asshole. And he says that they should just put it to a vote. But most people seem to agree with Steve at this point because the news report said people have been evacuated from higher altitude, so they should work their way down the mountain. Eventually, they decide to just camp in this spot for the night, gather what food they can, and then head down the mountain as fast as they can the next morning. And then later that night, we go back into the town, and Tucker is in bed, and the phone rings, waking him up. And it's another officer saying that the army is there because animals are going crazy everywhere above 5,000 feet, and they need to start evacuating the town, and it's martial law, so like they have to get it done. So Tucker gets up, starts getting ready, and he hears some loons outside saying they sound peculiar. They sounded like fucking loons to me, but I whatever. And then he hears a noise in another room, so he slowly goes in to investigate. He looks in the kitchen, he turns on the lights, the noise has stopped, and then he's like, well, all right. So then he goes and grabs some food from the fridge. You know, as one does when they hear it's martial law has been implemented, you know, and he has to evacuate the town. He's like, better get some chicken first. So he sets it down on the table, and then he turns away to grab something else, and when he turns back, there's just like a bunch of rats swarming this chicken, and then they start jumping at him and start fucking attacking him. So he manages to escape all of them, and he even like grabs one of them and throws it outside, and then when he does, we see the dog from earlier standing outside growling and barking at him still. So he slams the door shut, he runs upstairs and tells his wife that the rats have gone crazy and they need to get moving. It's not just the rats, Tucker. It's all the animals. My God. And then in town, we see people walking and driving down the main street as the army is directing them out of town. And then Tucker's wife drops him off at the police station, even though she doesn't want to go without him, you know, but he's got to stay and help out. Maybe you could have gotten there sooner if you didn't want to eat your fucking chicken, you fat ass. We go back with our main group, and the professor and Terry are awake by the fire, getting some torches ready. And then they comment that one of the hikers, who's a football player or something, has cancer. Don't know why we needed this, but there it is. Roy has cancer, so we're extra sad now, I guess, because it's sad when celebrities and football players get cancer. Not that it's not sad, it's just that it's always sad when somebody gets cancer. Unless they're a Nazi, then fuck those guys. We see everyone else sleeping, and then Daniel is suddenly attacked by a fucking mountain lion. And then some more mountain lions start making it into the camp and start attacking, and like there's birds screeching. Again, I think the birds are the fucking ringleaders of the Day of the Animals. Like, I think they're the ones like watching everything. Just like in Ghost in the Darkness, I did an episode with Dissect That Film about the Ghost in the Darkness, and then there's like this really convenient owl distracting them at one point. Or no, the owl swoops down at Val Kilmer, which like kind of distracts him from hunting the lion. So I'm just saying, it's always the fucking birds, man. You gotta watch out for them. But then some people start fighting off the cats with some torches, and they eventually leave. And the professor comments that these mountain lions or cats don't usually attack in groups. And then Paul says it's because they don't have enough fire. But Steve says that they probably should have stayed awake to keep watch. So Paul was clearly sleeping, like sitting up, but he insists that he was awake, so he was supposed to be keeping watch. And then everyone starts arguing, asking where the helicopters are and all that, and Steve yells to quiet everyone down. Fucking Steve just laying down the law for everybody. And then the next morning, everyone is at a nearby stream getting water, trying to catch fish, and everybody seems like they're in a much brighter mood today. I guess the sunshine and water is doing them some good. And then Steve suggests that they start like packing all the food they can and start heading down the mountain, and they should be able to make it down in like 2 days. Paul then speaks up and suggests that they go up to the ranger tower that Frank and Mandy were going to, but that's up the mountain when they should be going down. And then Paul tries to fight Steve about it, but Steve then mentions that if Frank and Mandy had made it to the ranger tower, then a chopper should already be out looking for them. And like clearly there hasn't been one, so obviously they didn't make it to the tower. But all of this just starts to like divide the group in half, and then basically half of them end up going with Paul. So the mother and son go with Paul along with one of the couples, and then everybody else stays with Steve. We then go back with Frank and the little girl, and they come across a big campsite with a bunch of tents and a few vehicles. And then Frank starts yelling to see if anyone is there, but there's no response. And then we go back, and Steve and his crew find a cave or a mine opening to head inside to avoid this storm that's rolling in. And then Paul and his crew are walking along when this storm starts to break out. And then the mother starts arguing with him that, like, they have no food, and then he pushes her, and her son tries to intervene, and, like, he starts throwing the kid around. I've really mostly seen Leslie Nielson do comedy roles. Like, I know he was a serious actor before, like, doing Airplane and all of that. Like, what was that one he did in the 50s, Forbidden Planet, I think? But, yeah, he was a big douche in this movie. Like, his character, I mean, and he sells it. Like, he is so good playing this character in this movie. Like, he fucking nailed it. But yeah, he just keeps pushing them all around, and then he even attacks one of the dudes and says like, "Oh, I'm in charge now." And then he stabs this dude in the stomach with a fucking stick. And so, like, this is where I think the movie was starting to suggest that Paul is being affected by the virus, because he does this and it just has, like, no effect on him. He's just like, yep, this is what needed to be done. Like, this is perfectly fine. So, like, basically he's turning into an animal himself. Although, aren't all humans animals in the end? That's a philosophical question, not for this podcast. Back with Steve and his crew, they have a fire going, and him and Terry talk about the other group and their worries about everything and life's regrets and all of that fucking nonsense. And then the professor starts giving one of his lectures so Roy, the football player, can keep his mind off his leg. And then he starts with, every living thing dies. And I'm like, are we in fucking Donnie Darko now? Like, what are you doing? This does not help. This is not a motivational speech. You're trying to keep his mind off of, like, his leg that was injured, and, like, this isn't working. This is not how you do it. But Paul and the remaining members of their group are stuck in the rain as, like, lightning strikes around them, and then Paul starts yelling into the sky like a madman, and then he goes to, so the dude that he stabbed, his girlfriend was with him, so he goes to that dude's girlfriend saying that he won her, she belongs to him now, and then basically tries to rape her. But then a fucking bear comes along, finally. And so they start going toe to toe. Paul starts fighting this bear. They kind of like bear hug fight for the most part while the storm like rages on. And then the rest of the group they fuck right off. They're just done with all Paul's shit. Plus he's probably going to die because he's fighting a bear. And this fight was pretty cool for the most part, because we do see like a stuntman actually like interacting with the bear like in frame together. And so yeah, we do get some of these like quick cuts back and forth, but just the imagery of it all, like Leslie Nielson like fucking raising his fists up to a fucking like grizzly bear. Although I think it was like actually a black bear or brown bear or something. It wasn't actually a grizzly, but that's neither here nor there. Like, just the whole imagery of it was awesome, with the storm raging and the rain coming down. It was really fucking cool. I really like this part of the movie. But yeah, obviously Paul fucking dies, because you can't go fist to fist with a fucking bear. Don't try it. But then morning comes, and then Paul and the little girl find a road, and they finally made it back to town. So they go to a truck and take a look inside, but the bed of the truck is filled with snakes. So yeah, fucking snakes coming back in. So they start running away. They go to a house. They call for help. No one responds. And so Frank starts yelling for like anyone that they need help. And then the little girl starts crying, and Frank yells for her to stop. And then he leaves her to wait while he looks around. But she runs after him saying like, oh my God, no, don't leave me. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never leave you again. Ugh. And then they come across an army truck whose horn just starts like blaring out of nowhere. So Frank opens the door and Tucker falls out. He's dead. I don't really know if we know how Tucker died or why he was the one driving the army truck. It could have been something I missed. That might totally be on me. Yeah, I'm not really sure. But they start walking away, and they come across the angry dog that we've been seeing off and on. And then they get into a truck. Frank tries to start it, but it doesn't start. So he grabs a hammer from the back, and he tells the little girl, listen, I know I said I wouldn't leave you, but I'm going to leave you right now, and I'm going to go, and I think he's going to go and try and steal gas from another car, which I'm like, why wouldn't you just go to that and take that car? Like, why are we doing this? I don't know, complete nonsense. So he grabs a hammer, and he starts walking out, and he starts heading to this car, but the dog is outside waiting for him, so he's like kind of holding the dog at bay. And so he opens up this car. He starts reaching inside without looking, but this car is filled with fucking snakes. And so he starts getting bit by a bunch of snakes. As if this wasn't bad enough, he then starts getting attacked by the fucking dogs. Or one dog, I should say. Yeah, so the little girl sees all of this happening, and so she's going to need some serious fucking therapy by the time this is all over. We then go back with the remaining people that were following Paul. So the mother, the son, and the woman. And they come across a chopper, and they find the pilot nearby being attacked by wolves or dogs. I think it might have been like dogs or something. So they all run into the chopper as the animals try to break in, and they just keep like running up against the windows and whatnot. And then we go back with Steve and his crew, and they come across some cabins where they plan to spend the night. They're very basic, like, kind of camping shelters, not really cabins so much. So they had, like, cutouts for windows, but there's no actual glass in most of them. And as they start searching them, we see, like, German shepherds start to appear everywhere, and they all start barking at them. So they run for one of the cabins that has, like, an actual door on it. And they get in, start to block the windows and doors, but the dogs are relentless. And they even manage to, like, scratch some legs. So here we get some, like, fake dog paws kind of reaching in. Luckily, we don't linger on this for too long because they're, like, so obviously fake. But again, this is the kind of stuff I'm here for. This is what I was hoping for. But after a little while, the dogs seem to give up. So Steve decides that, like, they better get out of there before the dogs get back. So they open the door, and the dogs just start bursting through the windows and then the door and just start attacking fucking everybody. So Steve, Terry, and Daniel make it out while the others are attacked, and they make it to the water, and Steve yells for them to, like, get in the water, which I'm like, dogs can swim, right? Like, this isn't gonna, like, completely help you. But yeah, it doesn't matter because Terry can't fucking swim. So they break the dock off, which basically turns it into a raft. But the dogs just jump onto the raft and starts biting at everybody who's in the water holding onto the raft. And then the raft starts heading into some rapids, and then we just kind of fade away from this, so we don't fully see what happens yet. I'm just like, what a weird way to cut from this. I'm just like, why wouldn't we want to see what fucking happens here? I'm like, I don't know, this was just kind of dumb. So we go to the helicopter, the kid wakes everyone up and tells them to look at what happened. So they get out of the helicopter, and all of the dogs and all of the animals are dead. And so they start kind of celebrating as this helicopter starts approaching from the distance, and they're all happy and whatnot. We go back in town, and then we see some military dudes walking through the town in, like, these silver radiation suits looking for survivors. And we just see, like, dead people and dead animals on the streets. And then this is where they're talking to someone on the radio, and we learn that some people have an immunity to whatever this is. And he says, like, the virus mutation can't go on since the ozone layer is repairing itself. So I guess it's only active when there's no ozone layer. We don't get too much into the science of it, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. That's not why we're here. But they do find the little girl and save her and take her with them, so she is fine. Well, physically she's fine. Mentally, she's fucked for life. Like, there's no way she's living a normal life after this. Good God. And then we finally see the fate of Steve, Terry, and Daniel floating on the raft. They're fine. They're just floating on the raft. And they're going under a bridge with some army dudes above them working on getting them out of the water. And then this is where they realize that it's over. And then the movie ends with a bird screeching, coming at the camera, and we freeze frame. See? It's the fucking birds. It's always the goddamn birds. Oh, man. Alright, so I know there wasn't much bear action in this movie, as I was, like, kind of initially led to believe. But I mean, Leslie Nielson fighting a bear is kind of a fucking highlight, so I think it's definitely worth talking about. Overall, this movie was well done. I think it's really fun. I liked the environmental message that they were trying to go for, and just, like, the craziness of it all. The acting was great, and like I said, Leslie Nielsen fucking nails being an asshole in this movie. Like, he was really good. 90% of the animals, I would say, were real, with some, like I said, with, like, the fake dog paws, like, scratching at people's legs and whatnot. But for the most part, these were just, like, real animals. Like, they were actually, like, attacking people in frame and whatnot. So I feel like they actually upped the wackiness from, like, Grizzly. So it was way more wacky and crazy. I don't feel like it was as violent. It definitely wasn't as gory, but still pretty effective for the most part. But I would have liked to have seen more carnage. Again, I probably say that all the time, but overall, still really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think it's a great follow-up to Grizzly. I like the story of it. And I think it's one worth checking out. I watched this for free on YouTube. And there's also a Riff Tracks version, so that's probably something worth checking out too, because everything they do is fucking great. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this movie for what it was. I thought it was pretty decent. But that's going to do it for me this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to help out the podcast a little bit, you can go and follow me on all the social medias or sign up for the Patreon, like I said. But I'll see you guys next time for even more Bucket of Chum.